Hello and welcome to Mickeyology, where we take Disney a little too seriously. I'm Austin Rathall, and I'm here to let you know that there is a ghost haunting Disneyland. He lives in New Orleans Square. No, not that one. Not those guys either. Guests can't see this ghost, and unlike many park residents, he's not a fictional character either. He's a real person named Jean Laffite, and his specter now hangs over the spookier section of the happiest place on earth. You see, New Orleans Square is a window into his world, and the whole land seems to tell his life story. And that story goes like this. Jean Laffite was born in Haiti around the year 1780. He was raised by his grandmother, and when he reached adulthood, he moved north to New Orleans, where he and his brothers became smugglers. Soon, Lafitte turned to piracy. He led a crew of about 1,000 men operating in the pirate-friendly Bay of Barataria. Their home base was a place called Grande Terre, a Louisiana island that became their own pirate colony. The Baratarians plundered about 100 Spanish ships, and they would auction off their stolen goods and trinkets to the New Orleans gentry. If they ever needed to make a quick getaway, they would simply slip into the swamps that they knew so well and make their way back to Grande Terre. While Lafitte made most of his money in the slave trade, he also stocked up on munitions. He would store lots of gunpowder and cannonballs in warehouses for future use. Now, while he would describe himself and his men as respectable privateers, the local officials knew them as pirates. His brother Pierre was even jailed at one point, although he managed somehow to escape. When the War of 1812 began, the British tried to recruit Lafitte, but he chose to side with the Americans instead. He allied himself with Andrew Jackson, and he helped Jackson's men to build strategic fortifications. During the Battle of New Orleans, Lafitte and his men fought so bravely that they became war heroes, and they earned the respect of America's leaders. To thank him for his service in the war, President James Madison pardoned Jean Lafitte and his men. But Lafitte couldn't resist the pirate's life. After the war, he headed west to Galveston, Texas, and he resumed plundering ships. No one's sure exactly what happened to him after that, but some believe that he retired in Mississippi and lived the rest of his life in a mansion. Locals call this mysterious waterside mansion the Pirate House, and they say it was owned at one point by none other than an aging Jean Lafitte, who apparently retired from piracy after the government made it a capital crime in 1817, and he went to live in this mansion with his wife and son. Over the years, several people reported seeing ghosts inside the house, and they say that 3 souls whose bodies lie at the bottom of the backyard's well wander the house's grounds. Some say that one of the spirits is none other than the ghost of Jean Lafitte. Now, if Jean Lafitte did wander the grounds of this house in the afterlife, he doesn't anymore, because a hurricane destroyed the house in 1969. Now that you know Jean Lafitte's story, or rather his legend, keep it in mind the next time you visit Disneyland. In fact, I recommend that you take yourself on the Jean Lafitte tour of New Orleans Square. Here's how you do it. You'll enter New Orleans Square from the Adventureland side and head directly into Pirates of the Caribbean. As you board your boat, pay special attention to the sign hanging just above the dock. The boat's going to take you through a little bayou settlement that looks a lot like the one Jean Lafitte and his men probably would have lived in. Then the boat's going to thrust you back in time into a Caribbean town where pirates are doing battle with the Spanish. You're in Jean Lafitte's world now. It's the Caribbean as it would have looked in his heyday. As you go through the ride, you're going to see several scenes, including an auction scene where pirates are auctioning off the goods that they have just plundered, and you'll see some pirates in a jail cell about to make a miraculous escape. Who knows, maybe one of them is Jean Lafitte's brother Pierre. Your journey ends inside a munitions storehouse, just like the one that Lafitte and his men would have kept around New Orleans, except this one happens to be just on the brink of exploding. When you emerge from Pirates, head next over to Tom Sawyer's Island and pay special attention to the name on the tavern you see when you get there. Here on the island you can explore a pirate hideout, kind of like the pirate hideout Lafitte had on Grande Terre. You can also see a fort there that's probably similar to the one that Lafitte and his men helped Andrew Jackson to build. By the way, guess who used to sit inside the fort on display at Disneyland? Next, head back to the mainland and go to the Haunted Mansion, but pay special attention to the weather vane on top of the house before you enter. Once you're inside, see if you can spot a portrait that features a haunted sailing ship before seeing all of the ghosts that are haunting the house's interior. Now, towards the end of your journey, you're going to move out onto the house's grounds, and you will spot 3 hitchhiking ghosts. And you may wonder if they left their bodies in a backyard well somewhere nearby. After that, circle back down to the plaza by the riverfront and look out for a certain anchor on display there. Read the placard beneath the anchor and it will give you a brief account of a pirate crew that may or may not have plundered the area nearby. This completes your tour. You have now gone through Jean Laffite's life, from his days as a pirate, through his days in the War of 1812, and finally to his afterlife in a haunted mansion. So, did Disney deliberately design New Orleans Square to tell Laffite's story? Well, probably not. However, Lafitte's story definitely did influence the creators of Pirates of the Caribbean. Mark Davis, who sort of masterminded the attraction, studied Jean Laffite's story in preparation for making the ride, and Exitencio, who scripted the ride, watched the Jean Laffite movie, The Buccaneer, as part of his research. However, Lafitte was only one of many pirates that these guys studied, and of course, Pirates of the Caribbean is only one of the many attractions in New Orleans Square. However, even though Disney didn't deliberately design New Orleans Square around Lafitte, the end result is Lafitte through and through. It's as if Lafitte's story is woven so deeply into the fabric of New Orleans and its history and its folklore that when Disney decided to make a New Orleans area, they couldn't help but evoke him and his story at every turn. Still, while the Lafitte theme appears to be at least somewhat accidental, Disney almost revamped New Orleans Square to make it a truly Jean Lafitte themed area. In the late 90s, Imagineers made plans to build Jean Laffite's crypt in the Haunted Mansion Cemetery and build a sort of Lafitte-themed tunnel that would connect the mainland to Tom Sawyer's Island. However, executives killed this plan before it could move past the concept art stage. Now, it's probably for the best that this never actually came to fruition and that Lafitte stays more in the background of New Orleans Square's story rather than the foreground. After all, the real Jean Laffite made a lot of his money through human trafficking, and while romanticizing fictional pirates like Captain Jack Sparrow is one thing, potentially glamorizing a real slave trader like Lafitte is something else. Besides, part of the fun of New Orleans Square is, of course, the mystery behind each of the attractions. There is a sense of wonder that you get when you see all the different pirates and ghosts, and you get hints at what their story might be, but you're never told the full thing, and so you, as the guest, get to sort of fill out that information in your own mind. However, seeing New Orleans Square as a retelling of Jean Laffite's life has a certain romance of its own. It makes the place seem more real and helps you appreciate just how steeped this place is in real New Orleans history and folklore. It makes it seem so real, in fact, that you can almost feel Jean Laffite's ghost haunting the place. And even though his actual spirit may not be there, his legend certainly is. And who knows? If I was the ghost of Jean Laffite and I couldn't live in my mansion anymore and I was cursed to wander the world to atone for my many sins, then I would probably choose to go haunt Disneyland for a while. And I think that New Orleans Square would feel a lot like home. So that's the story of Jean Laffite and how it connects to Disneyland. Please let me know down in the comments what you thought of this video and whether you would like to see more videos like this on the channel in the future. Speaking of which, please don't forget to like and subscribe and to help our channel to grow, and thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.